Hello and welcome to Adviser Toolkit. This is an examination of how broking is conducted at the moment, some of the areas that might be improved and is being improved, and where Maria fits into that ecosystem. So typical broking plan we'll take a look at, and you can see that it's not good. That's a comical representation, but all of those processes and staffing are really what you will see. But so that we can have a better look at it, here's a simplified version. And you'll see that it all begins obviously with a client interview, and traditionally you'd send that, you'd take that information onto an application form. You'd send that to an insurer, obtain quotes, policy documents if the quotes are competitive, and put that into your broking software as a transaction. But along the way, the insurer keeps the data as in the database, and your application form ends up in an image file which is not accessible or easily accessible data. Another alternative years and years ago that it's emerged is using an insurer platform to prepare the quote, and that might be while you're in a client interview, or it might be by completing an application form and then typing that data in, and then you get a quicker quote, which is great, but you're still then transacting that on your broker platform, losing data along the way and locking everything up in files. And more recently, you can take the client information directly into a broker platform which quotes and binds and keeps the underwriting data in a database, which is good. And finally, if you've got multiple products, some of them might be through the broking platform, some of them may be through a traditional application form manual method, some of them may be through an insurer platform, or those options exist. You might use a new or renewal client questionnaire to collect that data in a more appealing way for the client and an easier way for the advisor. So there is a move for broker platform quote and bind, and there's a belief that this might be a solution to the confusion, but in fact it isn't. It has an advantage in that you're taking information straight from a client interview into a broker platform. That data is structured. It's got all the underwriting data. You can do reports. You can do all sorts of wonderful things with that data, and including putting the data back out in preparation for a client interview. You just create a new quote and update the data with the client. But really, will there be no off-platform placements? Because that business model is starting to look like an online multi-quote facility that probably doesn't need an advisor anymore. And I think the reason why it's is favoured is that it takes the simple work away to allow brokers, advisors, to focus on the less simple work, which is, to be honest, where more of the advice-based money is. But it does nothing to simplify that those other methods of transacting. So I want to have a little look now back at this questionnaire, because pre-renewal and new client questionnaires have been around for a long time, and there's a reason why advisors do that. Despite the fact that they're a bit of a pain in the neck to prepare and maintain, they do look good in front of a client. They do organise the information for that client interaction. And so this is how that process looks like. If you close some of those loops and manage to get a questionnaire that stays up to date, then you conduct a client interview, you put everything into the questionnaire. The questionnaire feeds the rest of the process. Now, then your questionnaire is ready for next year's client interview. You may find that there are some simpler transactions that are done straight into a broking platform, but you can have that data come straight from the platform and pre-populate a questionnaire, for example, if you want to extend the sale. and interest the clients in additional products, not just the one platform product that you did because it was expedient at the time. So you have to wonder, why isn't everyone doing this already? And there's a really good reason for that, because questionnaires are actually a nightmare. If you're covering a broad product range, you end up with tens of thousands of possible data points. Those tiles in the back of that slide is a representation of a Word document, not unlike the Word document that's used by a lot of brokers. And you can see that it is a bit of a mess. It's over 60 pages and it still doesn't cover all the products that you could offer. There's only a small percentage of those questions and pages that are actually required for any one client. You don't know exactly which percentage until you're with the client. And a traditional database can't really cope with that, because this is a lot like medical records, and medical records don't use traditional databases. They use a different kind of database which copes with tens and tens or hundreds of thousands of data points, where any individual patient will only, if they're unlucky, will only have 5 of those conditions that could be recorded. So Maria relies on a different kind of database, and that's what Maria-supported broking looks like. We've created a robo-advisor assistant. This is not to replace advisors, but to help them drive sales, and we've called that Blueprint. We've got an interview which is adaptive to any cover. So once you've started your client file, a few basic details, if you've wanted to do a blueprint to uncover additional needs, that's completed, and then you tick the covers that you're going to be investigating, and the interview is built with exactly the right questions with no duplication, just for that client. So that's really professional. You can do that on a tablet, on a notebook, you can even do it on a smartphone at a pinch, and that drives the process. So the information from the interview then goes into a database, and that database really can drive automation. The information from the database can come out as printed application forms, but it also can be used to interface either through API or some kind of robotic automation, and these are really accessible features. You only have to type something into Google and you'll find so many people that are offering these programming and support services out of the box, and they'll be in the same building if you're lucky. And also you can drag information from the database into insurer platforms. But even before you've done any of that programming, if you still have staff typing that information in, you've actually got them set up with application forms for separate products with all the information organised, and you've had a really positive experience with your client at the front end. But the point that I would like to close with is that Maria is synergistic with broking software, broking platforms, insurer platforms, automation specialists, in-house and external systems. The reason why we've created Maria is not to compete with those systems, but to actually give them the central data set to drive them, to actually make them work. You see, one of the problems that, say, for example, an automation, a robotic automation process, is where does the data come from that the robot is going to use to populate the fields? And you find people engaging in data scraping, which is having a program run through all your image filing with optical character recognition, looking for key terms and dragging them into a database, and then someone's got to review all that. And it all seems a little bit mad when your advisors are in front of clients regularly taking that information, and all they need to do is take it in a better format that's more suited to these ongoing services. And it's a better interaction with the client because it looks so much more professional than having 60 pages flapping around in the breeze if it's a windy day at the coffee shop. So we're synergistic, not in competition. And if anyone offers those services and wants to reach out, please do. We'll be reaching out to you eventually. And just like to close, that's the team. Cameron Mitchell is me. I've had 30 years financial services experience. Paul Brabston is an excellent web application developer. And thank you very much for your attention.